This stood out to me, and I want to get y'all's thoughts on it as well. So this is an article from CBR. So this is all the lead up to the premiere. This is red carpet interviews that the showrunners are doing at the various premieres for season 2. And this was quotes from an interview done. The title of the article reads, "Let Us Cook. The Rings of Power showrunners hoping for another renewal ahead of season 2." This title stood out to me because I don't know why they are hoping for another renewal, because I thought that that was already contracted out for 5 seasons. I thought that was a sure thing. Like, it was in the contracts, 5 seasons for Amazon, and that was it. That's done. So the fact that they are hoping for a renewal, it just kind of stood out to me. Like, what's going on behind the scenes? Is this really not a sure thing anymore? So this goes on to say, the showrunners of The Rings of Power stoked fan anticipation ahead of season 2's release. They tease the show will be even bigger if season 3 is green-lighted. So if, not when, because that was a huge thing in the news for season 1 and the lead up to that Amazon in the contracts with the Tolkien estate had 5 seasons, and they also had an option, I think, for a spin-off, I guess depending on how well the show did. But that is what I thought the initial contract was. Like, that was down in writing. 5 seasons guaranteed. But now, apparently it's not so sure. Let's just see what their comments are. Showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay shared exciting news on season 3 of The Rings of Power. McKay was reserved when pressed to elaborate, but he hinted they're well into development. "All we can say is we're working on it," he told The Hollywood Reporter. "We're cooking. Let us cook." Also, I just wanted to point out, I've never heard a showrunner say that about themselves. Usually it's people and fans and audiences saying that about a show or a writer or showrunner. Let them cook. Let them cook. I've never heard someone actually say that about themselves, so it seems a little bit, just a hint of nervousness and possibly desperation. So it goes in to say, The Rings of Power Season 2 is about to launch, and McKay promised it will be epic. So this is a quote from McKay. "What we will say is this: Season 1 was huge and epic. We think we got even more on screen in Season 2. We wanted to push the show into new territory, and hopefully the audience will be surprised." He previously confirmed the series will be 10 times bigger in the second season, featuring battle sequences that span multiple episodes. They can expect it to go broader, deeper, and bigger. "We're going into more worlds, more monsters, more battles." So Payne said that last part. More worlds, more monsters, more battles is what we can expect. More style, more flash. And don't forget they're trying to do a new, Haladriel was the previous shipping name for Galadriel and Halbrand. I don't know what it's gonna be with Sauron. So this just, I get the vibes of, like, I don't know, a Michael Bay movie. More monsters, more worlds, more battles, 10 times bigger. We got more on screen. I don't know if that's the best way to sell this adaptation. It just feels like all flash and no substance. Okay, so at the end of this article, it's talking about the 5-season run initially contracted out. So Amazon Studios head Jennifer Salke confirmed The Rings of Power for a 5-season run. In a previous interview with Variety, she said they're pulling all the stops to make this happen. And she said, quote, "We're building infrastructure for 5 seasons. We're building a small city. We were always going to spend what we needed to spend to get it right." And Amazon Studios reportedly spent $465 million over 8 episodes of season 1, more than triple the initial allotment. The Rings of Power was originally confirmed to have a budget approaching $1 billion for all 5 seasons. And when I read this, I was floored, because this isn't even including the rights that they purchased from the Tolkien estate. Initially, I thought it was. I thought, oh, it must be including that, which I think was like $250 million. But no, there's actually another article confirming, I think it was from Deadline, that said season 1 cost $700 million with the rights purchase. So $465 million for season 1? 8 episodes? The average length, which I think was around 45 minutes, I think, to an hour. But that is insane. And I didn't even know this. So this is why I'm sure that Payne and McKay are hoping for that renewal now, because they've already spent almost half of their initial allotment that was contracted for 5 seasons. They had $1 billion set aside. And they spent almost half of that in the first season alone, and not including the rights. And I honestly don't know where most of this money went, because while there are some impressive visuals, they do not look like $465 million worth of impressive visuals. And when you also consider the costumes and even some of the sets that they had to build, I've seen much more impressive shows. Like One Piece was building entire like little cities and ports and docks. I could see where that budget went. That just really blew me away. This is insane. Just for one season, 8 episodes, $465 million. I can see why they're not as sure anymore when it comes to those 5 seasons. You've already spent half of your initial allotment. So are they going to have to redo some contracts? So I thought this was interesting that this article ended. And I think even the initial article that this is drawn from, The Hollywood Reporter, was the initial interview with them, also talked about the budget, since kind of is asserting that budgetary concerns are why they're hoping for that renewal now, and why it's not a sure thing as we initially thought. I thought it didn't matter. I thought views didn't matter. I thought money wasn't an object. 5 seasons was the contract. But now I don't know. Yeah, goodness gracious. $465 million. And she said we're building infrastructure for 5 seasons. What infrastructure? Because I already know that we're going into new places and bigger battles and bigger monsters. It sounds like they're going to spend possibly even more for season 2. I'm really curious as to what the budget is now for season 2, because they also had to deal with kind of delays with the writers and actors strike. I don't know if that impacted anything financially. And I think maybe season 1, were they also dealing with like certain health restrictions during that time? I think there may have been delays from there as well, but I don't see why those delays would cause your budget to be so inflated. And it doesn't even seem that big. So when you compare season 1, there wasn't a ton of action. What cost nearly $500 million for season 1? Wasn't there a story about how they built a whole studio down in New Zealand and then moved production to England? Yes, they did move production. Did they build a studio though? I don't remember that. I mean, they had to build it like from scratch. Would it cost that much? That just seems incredibly unusual. HBO's House of the Dragon cost under $20 million per episode to produce its 10-episode first season. And that's expensive, but you could see where they spent that money. The costumes are better, so you could see the quality there. You could see the budget when it came to the costumes. The costumes were, by and large, not impressive. And especially when it came to like the Numenorians. It wasn't armor. It was like a soft material. And I think Galadriel, for the most part, was in a nightgown. And she had like a couple other dresses. But she wore one. I think she only wore a new dress on the very end of the last episode. So she had like 3 outfits, basically. But primarily, she was in her nightgown. I just can't believe that even with building what they did, they built probably that set for the water scenes for, when Galadriel first meets Halbrand. But still, I can't see that costing that much. And for infrastructure, for what it appears to be the footage that I've seen from season 2, that you're not going to be using, because we're seeing all new places and we're seeing they're having to build all new locations. So what infrastructure were you building? Especially now you had to move. You had to move filming locations. You're not even in New Zealand. So I'm really curious to see what season 2's budget is going to be, if it's more expensive and bigger and badder and all that.